There is controversy in her past. She was involved with the torture programs after September 11th, and then involved with destroying videotapes of the matter also. That might be something that could be problematic.
Gina Haspel has a real history with enhanced interrogation in the CIA.
She clearly presided over a massive illegal operation that violated both U.S. law and international law. I'm sure those orders came down from above her, but that is no excuse.
So there you've got the mainstream media talking about how the president's pick to run the CIA has got a big problem with her past. The problem is, according to ProPublica, they have issued a correction. Turns out she was not involved in the interrogation of Abu Zubaydah. We've got that guy at the end of the couch, Mark Steyn, journalist and author who is guest hosting Tucker tonight, joining us live. What do you make of this?
Well, for start, I love the way that guy just referred to it as she was in charge of the torture program. That's now an official job in the U.S. government, right. You know, Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of Torture. It was, in fact, a perfectly lawful program at the time. And as you guys know, waterboarding is a technique. It was a technique that at that time was lawful under the United States government. That's right. People objected to it. A lot of journalists, actually, because they objected to it, underwent waterboarding. The late Christopher Hitchens put himself under it. And in fact, more journalists have been waterboarded than terrorists because it became the thing to do. And I think this is completely ridiculous. It was a lawful policy, and it's no longer a lawful policy. But the idea that retrospectively that makes her a torturer.
So her problem
as well.
is she was too tough on terrorists.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why we should like her.
And I don't think people are. And I hate, one of the things I hate, I've become to loathe about the political culture generally, is the whole rear-view mirror thing. You know, so we've spent 2 years now investigating Donald Trump over Russia, and that hasn't really gone anywhere. But we might have something on his tax returns from 1997. But if that doesn't go anywhere, let's go back and relitigate what was happening in the wake of 9/11, when everybody thought there was going to be another attack coming, and all you could do was use extraordinary techniques to persuade someone to cough up the information.
And everybody was on board with that.
Right, absolutely, everybody. Including all these people who now protest it for opportunistic reasons. And this rear-view mirror thing is absolutely killing us, because we've got a whole political culture that wants to relitigate 15 years ago and never looks 10 minutes ahead.
Speaking of litigation, United Airlines, this dog, they put the dog, the flight attendant allegedly put this dog up there, and the owner of the dog said there's a dog in there. Flight attendant says she didn't hear it. You're blaming a lot of the people that were sitting around the dog owner, right?
Yeah, I think one of the dangers of actually this post-9/11 flight environment is that it's training freeborn peoples to behave like a herd of animals. No, I'm being serious here.
Yeah,
it shocks me that people hear barking and they think, oh, look, there's a dog trapped in the overhead compartment. I'm going to film it on my telephone and then I'll put it on social. No, you stand. And I understand that if you don't do what the flight attendant, I nearly said stewardess, that's an offence these days. We used to call them in the 60s in Britain, they used to call them trolley dollies, which is an even worse offence.
What does that mean?
But the flight attendant, if you don't do what you do, she says, you're taken off the flight in manacles, in case you happen to be Mohammed Atta. And what that means is they're still letting in Mohammed Atta to run you down on the bike path, but people, freeborn peoples on a plane, travel for 3 hours with a dog in the overhead compartment, and they don't stand up, open it, and get the dog out.
Mark, who knows? Maybe they thought that was safe. I mean, if the flight attendant is saying, let's put him up there, it's probably safe. Turns out,
Have you thought, too, why didn't the dog owner, in the middle of the flight, I understand you can't have too many bags under your feet, in the middle of the flight, get up and get the dog?
Well, I think people are cowed because they know if you say anything, the flight's going to be late taking off. You'll be sitting out there on the runway.
Or you feel like you don't have any rights. You're scared.
Everyone's staring at you.
You don't want to be the embarrassed one.
No, and we're actually destroying and corroding. I mean, it actually is a serious it actually is a serious point. I don't think you should put any animal in there. You know, St. Patrick, who supposedly drove the snakes out of Ireland.
Right.
He didn't do it by sticking them in the overhead bin and flying them from Dublin to Heathrow.
That's snakes on a plane.
Yeah. I wouldn't do that to a snake, and we shouldn't do it to a dog.
You know, there's a big question.
That's history.
Glad you made that
That's
correlation.
history. He drove this. I don't know.
Similar but different.
Mark, I don't know if you have had your midlife crisis yet, but apparently it turns out more than half of millennials are going through their own quarter-life crisis.
No, and the minute I read about millennials going through a quarter-life crisis, I strangely had a premature 15/16 life crisis. I'm not sure I want to live in the same world as these people. I kind of understand it because we prolong adolescence now until basically until the age of 30, and then you start your adult life. And so you wake up in early middle age, and you're living in your parents' basement, and you've got 6 figures of college debt. There is an unattractive side to millennials. They're, in some ways, they're the most privileged group of people in human history. But there's also something tragic because of this whole business of deferred adulthood that leaves them ill-equipped for adulthood.
Yeah, isn't it the crisis the rest of us went through when we had to go off to college? You cut the cord and you're like, hey, I'll see if I succeed or fail. When you prolong that, it just prolongs the crisis.
No, and I think that's true. And I think, you know, if you were talking about JROTC and everything, I mean, it's very moving, actually. If you visit Wargrave Cemetery, I've visited the Canadian Commonwealth War Grave cemeteries in Normandy, and you look at the age on those markers.
Yes.
Those guys, they're like 17, 18, 19, but they were men. And there's a lot to be said for raising
Think
people.
about
Such a great
Think
point.
about our parents
Such a
and our
great point.
grandparents. They were getting married at 21. They had kids at 22, 23.
Right.
Yeah. Paying
and
bills.
actually, almost all our structural defects. I mean, to tie it back to the $1 trillion debt, immigration, we need people to do the jobs we don't do. Well, why do we need people to do the jobs we don't do? Because our own children are in protracted adolescence until the age of 28 and 29.
All right.
Grow up.
We got you started. He'll be back with the Tucker Show tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Now that's a torture program when I'm guest hosting.
No, it's Tucker, not torture. Tucker, not torture. All right, Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.